Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. If you enjoying this fanfic then press the like button and subscribe my channel.
Let's start fanfic. Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Naruto and Tenten were in secret relationship from childhood, Naruto x Tenten I Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this and comment for next part. And now let's start the fanfic. Hey, can't a sensei just see if his student is okay? Genma told Naruto with a small smile. To that he received a trademark Uzumaki grin. So sensei, what did you want to talk about? Naruto questioned his sensei. Well, I wanted to see if you were okay. I've been meaning to tell you that. Well, I am proud of you, Naruto, Genma said in a calm tone while looking towards the sky. Sensei. Naruto was happy that his sensei thought so highly of him. You see, Naruto, you're a lot like me in a sense. I was an orphan as well and I never knew who my family were. Not just that, but I had to become stronger on my own, so Naruto, I admire you for that. Naruto was shocked at his sensei's words but was not able to answer back. It took me a long time to realize I had to be strong on my own and that I needed to prove I was worthy. You see, when the Genin teams were being decided, I begged Sandame to be your sensei. I really want to see you grow and become a great shinobi. I also don't want you to be like me. I want to help you grow into a strong person. Genma finished and looked towards Naruto, who was just smiling. Naruto felt elated at his sensei's words. Everything was going right, his dream was becoming a reality slowly, and then people will know the name Uzumaki Naruto. Come on Naruto, we are going to have lunch at Raiden's place. He told me that we should all have lunch there, Genma said in his usual cool tone. Okay sensei, is Mai there as well? Naruto asked his sensei. He got a nod from his sensei. You think that there's something going on between those two? They seem awfully close lately, Naruto asked his sensei while walking towards Raiden's house. Who knows, those two, they are weird in that sense. Genma said in his bored tone. Oh, what about you and Maki Haim? I see that you're at her restaurant a lot lately. What's that about? Naruto asked his sensei, trying to make him blush. Yeah, well, I am trying to have with her. You know, she is really hot, Genma replied back in a voice with no emotion whatsoever. Naruto, who was an innocent boy, looked weirdly at sensei's blatant answer. Damn it sensei, why do you have to give weird answers? Naruto asked in an annoyed tone. Naruto just received a typical Genma look that just screamed, you wanted to know. As they reached the house, Genma opened the door with a key. Raiden had given a key so they wouldn't have to knock and wait. Naruto walked ahead to find a dark room, which was really weird. Surprise. Naruto jumped in. Surprise, with a kunai out to look at all his friends in party hats and sporting big grins. Naruto, who quickly put his kunai away, looked around the room in surprise. He was wondering what the occasion was, asked everyone what the party was for. It's for your birthday, dolt, Ino said while looking at him as if he were the stupidest person on earth. Naruto took a deep breath. They did this all for him, and he was actually having a birthday party. I really want to see you grow and become a great shinobi. I also don't want you to be like me. I want to help you grow into a strong person. Naruto remembered his sensei's words just a moment ago. He looked at Genma, who had a lazy grin. So that's what he meant. He didn't want me to grow up without feeling like a kid. Sensei, you're the greatest. He looked at his sensei, who seemed to have got the message. But how did you guys know? Naruto asked the whole group. Well, I think me and Genma-san can fill that in. Naruto. Iruka stepped out of the crowd with a big smile and a party hat. He told Naruto that his team wanted to know his birthday and willingly gave it to them. With that, Tenten stepped out from the crowd and put on a party hat on his head while giving him a kiss on the cheek. Naruto blushed at the weapon mistress kiss. He gave her look over to see she looked beautiful as ever. Can an old man join the party as well? Everyone turned to the door to see Sandyame Hokage standing there with a wrapped package. Hokage-sama! Everyone shouted out. The old Hokage seemed to just smile at the sound of his title. Naruto couldn't be more happy. All of his friends were gathered to celebrate high birthday. Usually he spent birthdays just training or having an extra bowl of ramen. The party was in full swing as everyone exchanged stories and had food, which was made by Raiden's mum and Maki. Naruto could not have been happier. However, when he sat down on the table, Tenten also sat down but on his right. He knew that she would start feeling him up, and of course he was not disappointed. She would do the simplest of things that would just make him blush. In his head he knew he liked Tenten a lot, but would he ever pursue a romantic relationship with her? Not at the moment. He was either too young or he was focusing on training more. The next event was Naruto's favorite, which was the opening the present time. He seemed to have got lots of presents from everyone. Even if they were cheap or expensive, Naruto would cherish them for life. However, there was one present from Genma that Naruto secretly liked the best. It was a group photo of Team 6 with all of them smiling. Naruto, who looked at all his friends smiling and having a good time, just felt at ease knowing that he was truly wanted by people and that he was not alone. A year and a half had passed and Naruto was a lot stronger than before. He could have easily taken the Chunin exams, but his sensei said that there were no rushes because next exam Konoha would be hosting. So what they did was a lot of exercise and teamwork training. Team 6 was starting to get noticed by Konoha a lot. It was said that their teamwork was so great that people started saying they were going to become the best team this village ever saw. Naruto just thought that was a long shot, thought they were still genin, but his sensei said they were all Chunin level for sure. They had also done a couple of more C rank, which were not that noticeable but were fun nonetheless. Naruto was currently training with Raiden, who seemed to improve a lot lately with his jutsus, when Mai came running towards them waving. Hey guys, did you hear? Genma sensei told me that they are going to be rookies coming to the Chunin exams, Mai said excitedly. Genma had nominated them this year for the exams. I bet it's just some Junins playing bets or something, Naruto said while sitting down and taking a breather. Hey Naruto, weren't you in the same class with those guys a couple of years back? And I think Ino-chan and Sakura-san will be there, Raiden said while getting a blush on his cheeks from saying Ino's name. When they were at the party, Ino wouldn't stop flirting with Raiden. When Mai heard her name, she scoffed. It was obvious to Genma and Naruto that Mai and Raiden really liked each other. Well, either way, they don't stand a chance against us, Naruto said with a huge smirk. Mai and Raiden had a bigger smile knowing that they were really strong. The next day, Team 6 were walking to the academy to take their test, also getting a good luck from Genma, who also said that they didn't need it. All three genins were psyched about this exam. They entered a building to find two groups starting at each other. They seemed to be in the middle of stairs. Hey, what's your name? A Hyuga said to a raven-haired shinobi. Aren't you supposed to give your name before asking? The raven-haired boy replied. Naruto, not letting these two stuck-up idiots stroke their ego, pushed past them to go to the stairs, not even to say hi to Tenten. Oi, watch where you're going, Uzumaki, Neji said with venom dripping his voice. Is that a threat, Hyuga? Because if it is, you should watch your back in the exam, Naruto said in a menacing voice. Okay, you two cut it out. Let's go guys, good luck Naru-kun, Tenten said while hauling Neji off in the other direction. Naruto did not even spare a glance towards Team 7, he just kept walking towards the room with his team. Yo Naruto, you okay bro? I mean, you seemed a little pissed with your encounter with his holy arrogance. Raiden started writing down his comical sentence after he asked Naruto in a concerned voice. Naruto, really, are you okay? Mai asked in a really concerned voice. Naruto just smiled at his friend's concern for him and just nodded. I am okay guys, it's just that guy really pisses me off, you know. He walks around preaching about destiny and crap, Naruto replied back in pissed of tone. As Naruto was walking towards room 301, he saw a man standing there with a face mask and spiky white hair. They walked past him to look at him a bit oddly. Naruto wondered why a Junin shinobi would be standing there. Team 6 inches, the white-haired man called back. The three genin stopped and looked at the weird Junin. I have heard great things about you, but I wonder who is stronger, my team or you guys, Kakashi said in a bored tone. Well, you will just have to wait and see, Naruto said while the three genins walked into the room full of genins and to try and find a seat. All three genins sat down and started talking amongst themselves about the exam and that weird Junin. While they were talking, Team 7 walked in, which consisted of Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura and Hyuga Hanabi. I know it's tradition for the Rookie of the Year to be with the dead last, but I couldn't be another into making another OC. Then the whole of the Rookie 9 came into the room and started to make a huge fuss, which seemed to catch the attention of the whole room. However, Naruto was not looking at them. Right now he was staring at the weapon mistress Tenten. Tenten, who felt like someone was watching her, turned to see her Naru-kun staring at her. Of course Tenten was never one to pass up a chance to tease Naruto, so she just her lips and winked at him. Yet again Naruto's shy nature kicked in and he started to blush furiously all over his body. Luckily he was saved as his best friend elbowed him to point at the Rookie 9. Apparently some white-haired boy with glasses started talking to them. Raiden filled him in that this boy had ninja info cards. He seemed to possess the knowledge or info on every genin that was taking the exam. It was then Uchiha Sasuke asked information on three genin: Rock Lee, Gaara of the Sand and Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto's eyes widened. Why the hell did he want to know about him, Naruto thought. And finally Uzumaki Naruto. Let's see, he has done 30D rank missions, 10C rank missions and 1A rank mission. He seems to have a vast array of knowledge on jutsus and he has a nickname. He is known as Konoha's Raging Storm. That's all the info I have on him, Kabuto said while pushing up his glasses. Everyone heard him say that Konoha's Raging Storm was taking part and started to whisper the name, the infamous genin. Naruto started to grit his teeth. He did not like that guy with glasses and he seemed to have information on him as well. However, the man with the glasses got his comeuppance when he insulted the village of Sound. Wow, talk about stupidity. I mean, they just openly attacked that guy, showing off their ability so openly, Mai said with indifference. Then after the ruckus settled, the first examiner appeared and told them it would be a written test. At this Naruto started shitting his pants. He didn't know there was going to be a written part. He could have revised or prepared. As all the genin prepared to do the test, Naruto looked at the paper to see that the question were way too hard and there was no way he could do this. He could see only 3 questions he could probably do. When the test started, he could hear a lot of tapping and scratching. Naruto put his headband over his eyes and pushed chakra into his ears. He could both hear Mai and Raiden doing Morse code. As he got the message, it started to make sense. This exam was a test of information gathering abilities. Ever since they had become genins, all 3 of them started to train with blind floods so they could hear more clearly. Naruto filled in the answers that were coming to him. Apparently Mai was using some sort of genjutsu to get the answer. So him and Raiden copied the answers from the Morse code. Row 5, chair 11, you fail, and so to do your teammates get out. Naruto looked up, see a trio of genin leave dejectedly. Now all Naruto had to was wait for the 10th question. When it came, apparently it was a choice of whether or not to take it. If they took it and failed the question, they would never be allowed to become more than genin. Naruto just stood his ground and would never back down, just like his friends. Naruto breathed a sigh of relief while he was walking to the forest of death. That 10th question had him quite nervous, but thankfully he was brave enough to get through that damn bastard's psychological question. Hey Naruto, you up for this survival part 1? Mean we can take any of these teams, I think, Raiden said with a smirk. Hey Raiden, don't get overconfident. We don't know how powerful some of these teams are, so we got to be careful, Mai said to the both of them in a calm tone. As they received their scroll and gate number, they got ready to jump into the forest for 5 days. As the examiner said that they were ready and the gates opened, they set off into the forest in a blur, going very fast so they could cover as much ground as possible until they got necessary scroll. They needed a heaven scroll, so they hoped they would be in luck. So how do you guys want to proceed with this? Just fight any random? Raiden was cut off when a torrent of shuriken came towards them at a freighting pace. Naruto reacted on instinct and shielded his friends from the attack with his own attack. Shuriken Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shuriken Shadow Clone Technique. Naruto's shuriken hit everyone of the shuriken thrown towards them. The three genin dropped to the ground to find three cloud shinobi waiting for them. You should just give us your scroll because it's pointless fighting as we are more clearly superior to you. As the cloud genin was in the middle of the speech, Mai did a number of seals to use one of her favorite techniques. Megan. Narakumi no Jutsu, demonic illusion, hell viewing technique. The cloud nins did not have a chance as they saw their worst nightmare come true. All could be heard was the three cloud shinobi screaming in agony. Mai was so delighted that she mentally destroyed the shinobi that she ran to retrieve the scroll, which was a heaven scroll. Wow, we are in luck, a heaven scroll. Hey, what's wrong with you two? Mai asked her two teammates, who looked kind of peeved off. It just that was so anticlimactic, Raiden said in a disappointed tone. You always say that, Raiden, Mai retorted back. Well, let's just go to the tower. We could run into some trouble, so the quicker we get there the better it is for us, Naruto told his friends. As they were running towards the tower they heard a huge shriek come from the forest. It was more like a woman's scream. Hey Naruto, Mai, do you think we should check it out? It could be a Konoha shinobi, Raiden asked with genuine curiosity. With those words they sped off in the direction of the scream. As they were running they saw the sound ninjas beating up a defenseless Sakura. Where do these Konoha bugs keep coming out from? The mummy-looking sound ninja said. It was then Team 6 noticed Hyuga Neji also perched on a branch. However, Neji said he didn't need to help when he saw an awakened Sasuke get up and start to release purple chakra. Naruto watched in awe how Sasuke demolished the sound shinobi with holes in his arms. Naruto looked towards Neji to see he was looking at him as well. They both knew what each other was thinking and that Uchiha Sasuke would be a worthy opponent. Naruto jumped down from the branch to go towards Sakura and Ino. It looked like Ino was cutting Sakura's hair to look more presentable. Hey you two, okay, you look like you have been in this forest for like 10 days, Naruto said with a grin. Sakura said she was fine and so did Ino. Naruto looked towards where Hanabi was lying. She seemed to have been knocked out, but was now being awoken by both Shikamaru and Shugi. His teammates wanted to get out of here as soon as possible so they could maybe relax at the tower. With that, Naruto bided Ino and Sakura a farewell and went on ahead to the tower. Taking one more glance at Sasuke, Naruto ran to the tower. When Naruto arrived there it seemed that the Chunin that came out of the scroll was Iruka. Naruto was thankful for the scarred Chunin to be there and talking to him. Team 6 were currently walking around the tower and they noticed that there was no one around at all. Hey, do you think we are the first group here? Because I don't see anyone. Naruto asked while looking around. Well, it took us at least a day to get here, so I don't think we are the first, Mai replied back while drifting off, seeing three sand shinobi walking past them. Naruto noticed the short shinobi with the gourd seemed to be radiating killer intent towards them. Of course Naruto was not fazed in the least and just walked past him, hoping not to agitate him at all. Mai, who was not paying attention to the sand trio, looked at her sister's genin team was there as well and started running towards them. Naruto and Raiden knew that Mai was on friendly terms with her sister's team. However, Raiden did notice that Mai was awfully friendly with the dog boy. Naruto, however, knew that Kiba liked Mai in a more than just a friend way. Hey, you guys made it as well, I am so glad. Did you make it right now? Mai asked with her tilted to one side. To that they got a huge nod from Team 8. Naruto noticed Kiba's dog shaking and asked. Hey Kiba, is your friend okay? He seems to be shaking a lot, Naruto commented while pointing towards. He found out that Akamaru was shaking from the chakra of the sand ninja with the gourd. As Team 8 and 6 went in their separate ways to rest, Naruto can't help but think whom that sand shinobi really is. All the potential genins gathered in a room with a group of Junin and the Hokage addressing them. Naruto, who was scooping the arena, found that were quite a number of groups there. The entire Rookie 9 were there and so were Neji's team and the Sand Trio. Naruto looked at two other groups to see that there were Sound Trio that got their asses handed to them by Sasuke and a Cloud Shinobi team. Naruto was surprised to not see the glasses guy. If he had so much info then he should have gotten the scrolls. It was then Naruto realized something was defiantly wrong in this exam and that something big was going down, but he didn't know what. As the Hokage explained the meaning of the exam, Naruto noticed that Uchiha was grabbing his neck and was having a heated conversation with the Hyuga on his team. It was then that the third examiner told the assembled genin about the preliminaries. Apparently there were too many genin to fight in the finals, so they had to cut the numbers in half again. It was then that the first match was announced, which would be Uchiha Sasuke vs. Dosu Kinyuta. Naruto looked at the Uchiha survivor and wondered how this match would proceed. All the genin and junin senseis were now watching the match from the balconies. It seemed everyone wanted to watch this match a lot. Now Sasuke-san, I will defeat you and take revenge for what you did to my comrade, Dosu said in a menacing voice. With that, both of the genin started their fight. But everyone could tell that Sasuke was suffering from chakra depletion. It was also a fact that he couldn't use the Sharingan. Naruto deduced that the special eyes must use a lot of chakra. Naruto was looking at Dosu as he delivered some devastating blows and used his weird gauntlet to make Sasuke throw up and act all groggy. However, Sasuke seemed to turn it around as he was looking at Lee and did what looked like a kick to push the sound nin up. He then began to use shadow dance and delivered a mighty number of combos. The move he used was Lion Combo, which was a jutsu he created in the heat of battle. It seemed Dosu had no chance as he was completely destroyed by Sasuke's attack and was carried off in a stretcher. Winner Uchiha Sasuke, the coughing examiner said while Sasuke brought himself to the balconies to watch the next match. Hey Kakashi, don't you think Sasuke needs to rest and get some attention? Genma asked Kakashi why he was letting him stay. Well, I want him to look at the competition so he will be ready for the finals, Kakashi in his usual tone of laziness. Genma narrowed his eyes at the perverted Junin. Don't you mean to steal jutsus? Genma asked Kakashi in an angry tone. Your words, not mine, Kakashi said, not looking away from his book. With that, Genma went towards his three students, telling not use any jutsu, which could be copied unless they had to. Naruto, who was taking in all this new information, got angry and thought, no way I am going to let some bastard steal techniques that took all my life to learn. Don't worry sensei, all my original jutsu cannot be copied because they don't require hand seals, so he can't copy them, Naruto replied back with confidence. Just be careful, not all techniques without hand seals can be protected from the Sharingan, Genma told a confident Naruto. Naruto now was thoroughly pissed off. He didn't want all his hard work to be copied so cheaply. However, he had to turn his attention to the next match that was coming up. Nara Shikamaru vs. Kin Tsuchi. This match was fairly straightforward as the sound ninja was clearly in need of rethinking her strategy and her surroundings. All the matches were quite straightforward, as you knew who was going to win. Kankuro beat the Cloud Nin Kyo, who seemed to lack chakra to even fight Kankuro. Hanabi had won an easy victory of Choji as she placed few precise hits on Choji's large body, coincidentally knocking him out. Shino showed that bugs shouldn't be underestimated no matter how small, and blew off his arms, which were plugged with bugs. Unfortunately, after still cheering Sakura to win, she lost terribly to a superior Tamari who just blew an already beaten up Sakura with ease. The next match, Naruto was glad that a Konoha female ninja passed. It was his ever-teasing Tenten who showed her skill with weapons. However, it was noted that she just passed by using her last and only big attack. If she wanted to win in the finals, she would have to do some good hours of training. At this point, Naruto was starting to get annoyed that his matchup was taking so long. But the next match caught his interest as Raiden's match was next and he was facing Kiba. Just as Raiden was going down, Naruto tugged his arms and whispered into his ear. Don't show your full strength. All he got was Raiden's goofy grin as he walked to the center. Naruto looked towards Mai as she currently near her sister. Naruto could tell Mai was worried and didn't know whom to cheer. Naruto was just worried that Raiden would do something stupid to get Mai's attention and in the processes making her angry with him. So do you think he will use his weapons or hands? Genma asked towards his student. Naruto, not really knowing, gave an honest shrug as to say he really didn't know. However, Naruto did notice Sasuke look at interest as his Junin sensei whispered into his ear. Naruto started to growl at the Uchiha's blatant attempt to use the Sharingan even though he was out of chakra, so he could learn a couple of jutsus. However, before the match even got started, the spiky white-haired shinobi kicked off in his usual fashion by telling a joke. He even requested the referee time to tell the joke, who was a little freaked out that a shinobi would say such a thing. Okay, here it goes, Raiden said with a schoolgirl giddiness. One day 3 guys were driving in the middle of nowhere when their car broke down. They got out and looked around at their surroundings. Finally, the first guy says, "I'm going to go look for some food." The other 2 guys say, "Why?" "So we can eat, of course," says the first guy. Once the first guy comes back, the second guy says, "I'm going to go get some water." "Why?" ask the other 2. "So we can drink it if we get thirsty, of course." Once the second guy gets back, the third guy goes and tears off the car door. "What's that for?" asked the other 2. "In case we get hot, we can roll down the window." When Raiden finished, he was rolling on the floor in hysterics, while the rest of the room just sweat dropped from the worst joke they had ever heard. Mai started to shout at Raiden for his really bad joke, telling him to be serious for once. With that, Raiden's match had started. Raiden squared off against Kiba using only taijutsu and not to use his ninjutsu so it wouldn't be copied. Kiba tried with all his might to get him even with his dog's transformation, but in the end Raiden beat him with an original technique, one he called Fist of Raijin, whereby electrical energy covers his fist and he punches his opponent, giving him an electrical shock as well as physically damaging him. Naruto could tell that Mai was torn between congratulating Raiden and rushing down to see if Kiba was alright. Mai chose the latter, rushing down to see if Kiba was okay. But Mai did not catch the hurt look that crossed Raiden's face. Raiden, not willing to see the display between both Mai and Kiba, left the arena saying he needed some fresh air. When Raiden left, however, it was a match that he would have wanted to watch as Ino and Mai fought it out. Ino showed some skill in being able to dispel some of Mai's genjutsus, however she was no match for Mai's ability with kenjutsu, so the match was easily decided as Ino forfeit, not wanting to die by the blade. The next 2 matches were ones to boil Naruto's blood as the Neji mercilessly put down and beat Hinata even though Naruto was cheering her on. Neji showed why he was last year's Rookie of the Year. Hinata was lucky, however, before Neji could kill her, the Junin senseis and the examiner stopped him from delivering the fatal blow. Naruto made a vow to defeat the arrogant Hyuga in the finals. The next match was more infuriating as Lee tried his hardest to beat the powerful Sand Shinobi's defense. But to no avail, he was quickly taken down even after trying to use both his special moves. The Sand Nin Gara crushed Lee's left leg and arm, making him unable to be able to live as a shinobi. Naruto, however, didn't have time to dwindle. His match was coming up and left for the middle just in time for Raiden to come back from his fresh air. Sasuke seemed to watch this match with vigor as Kakashi whispered into his ear. Naruto could tell he wanted to copy his moves, so he decided to not use any ninjutsu at all unless he really needed to. Naruto was facing off against a Cloud Shinobi, the last from his group. Naruto didn't seem to care what his name was, but knew he was not all that strong from the way he carried himself. "Begin," the third examiner shouted. Naruto ran towards the Cloud Nin full force with his staff. Naruto was able to dodge most of the Cloud Nins, but his speed was better than his and quickly beat him to the ground. Naruto was in shock that the Cloud Nin was that good, but failed to realize that his staff was in his hands. "So this is where you get your power. What would you do if I cut this hunk of wood in half?" the Cloud Nin tauntingly told Naruto. Naruto, however, was in shock when the Cloud took his staff and broke it in half using some sort of lightning cut jutsu. Naruto, however, was in shock. He couldn't stop the rage that was building inside him. "How dare you break that staff? That staff was a precious gift I got from a good friend," Naruto spoke in a whisper. Up in the stands, Genma was worried about Naruto and what he was going to do. "Naruto, don't use that technique. Genma shouted at Naruto, but it fell on deaf ears. Naruto prepared a Kanashibari no Jutsu, temporary paralysis technique, which froze the Cloud Nin in his shoes. Genma tired to stop Naruto from using this deadly technique, but it was too late as Naruto appeared right in front of the Cloud Nin and used the Bringer of Darkness technique. The whole room seemed to turn dark, and then everyone saw 15 flashes of light. When the darkness subsided, everyone looked to see a dead Cloud Nin and Naruto with blood-red eyes. Everyone assembled looked down in shock as they saw a normally calm Naruto turn crazy and kill the Cloud Genin without mercy. All the normal genin looked on in fear and wonder. However, a select few had different thoughts. Sasuke was feeling so much fury inside because he couldn't copy the Jutsu whatsoever. It looked like Naruto used some sort of weird chakra. Sasuke looked on in jealousy. He wanted that technique and he craved that technique. It was perfect technique to kill Itachi. Gaara had different thoughts. From his perspective, he saw Naruto use demonic chakra, which meant he had a demon inside him as well. Neji was looking a little scared. He knew that wasn't normal, and from the look Naruto was giving to the mutilated Cloud Nin, he hoped he hadn't pissed him off too much. Genma appeared before Naruto and placed a hand on his shoulder to calm the boy. Naruto looked back to see his sensei's eyes to find he had disappointment in his brown eyes. Naruto looked down in shame. He knew that he messed up bad but couldn't help feel rage inside of himself, for that idiot destroyed a precious gift that he treasured the most. He wasn't worried that Sasuke would copy this just because he had to tap into Kyuubi's power to use the specific jutsu. When he was developing the technique, he couldn't perform it right. It wasn't until he actually used it against Mizuki that it worked. In that moment, he had felt the same anger that he felt when he fought the Cloud Nin. Every time he used that technique, he felt himself get more and more angry and evil. Winner Uzumaki Naruto, the coughing Junin announced, indicating the end of the preliminaries. Naruto looked at his hands to find it covered in blood. He then realized that he had just killed the Nin because he broke his staff. He couldn't believe it. He actually killed a person because he broke something, an inanimate object. He took a life for an object. Naruto felt disgusted at himself for doing such an idiotic thing. He turned around to see all eyes were on him. As he walked towards the area where the old Hokage was, he heard the examiner say to take out some balls with numbers on them. This method would determine the person you would be fighting. After everyone had taken a ball, the examiner held up a list of who was fighting whom. First match: Hyuga Neji vs. Uzumaki Naruto. Second match: Tenten vs. Yuhi Mai. Third match: Gaara of the Sand vs. Uchiha Sasuke. Fourth match: Hyuga Hanabi vs. Kagura Raiden. Fifth match: Konkuro of the Sand vs. Aburame Shino. Sixth match: Nara Shikamaru vs. Tamari of the Sand. Naruto noticed that there are odd numbers in the finals, which would mean that the semi-finals would be three-way match unless there was a double knockout early. Naruto looked at list more carefully and cursed his luck. He really wanted to fight that arrogant Uchiha and put him in place. The Hokage said the whole group had a whole month to prepare for this battle, and Naruto couldn't wait to train to his fullest. After the announcement, Naruto walked slowly over to his broken staff and picked up both pieces. He looked around the arena to find no one was there anymore. Naruto was walking slowly out of the building when he heard a familiar voice. "What's with the long face, Naruto? I didn't think you lost," Genma asked Naruto with a Senbon needle sticking out of his mouth. Naruto looked down and told Genma that he was sorry for using that jutsu. "Don't worry, Naruto. It's okay as long as you don't use it again. I'm okay with it. Now come on, we should start training," Genma told Naruto while walking out of the building. Naruto asked about his two other teammates. Genma told him that their guardians would train them, so that left Naruto and Genma. Naruto and Genma were walking to the hot springs, which Naruto thought was weird. As they reached the hot springs, Genma told Naruto about their new training exercise. "Okay, Naruto, because it's just you and me, this will be easier. And don't worry, I am not playing favorite." Gave each of them a scroll to learn by the end of the month. Genma started to explain. So Naruto proceeded to try out the new chakra exercise by walking out on the hot water. To say Naruto was pissed would be an understatement. It seemed that Genma was enjoying himself seeing Naruto squirm under hot water. It wasn't long before he got the whole exercise when Naruto slipped and saw something. Naruto was walking to a clearing to start his training with his new sensei. It was really crazy the events that happened yesterday. But now his sensei and a perverted hermit were training him. But that wasn't the only new development. When he finally got Ero Sennin to teach him, Tenten appeared and asked Naruto a favor. Apparently she wanted to train with Naruto. At first he was kind of against the idea as she was supposed to fight against his teammate. However, he accepted when he saw the look in her eyes. She really wanted to become stronger. Jiraiya made a comment that she would be a good stress relief for Naruto. Naruto merely punched the perverted hermit for saying such perverted things. So now Naruto would be training with a girl that he found to be the most attractive girl in the whole Konoha. Naruto's inner pervert was jumping up and down, being able to stay with a girl as hot as Tenten. Speak of the devil, Naruto said to himself as Tenten came running into the clearing. At 14 years of age she shouldn't have a figure like that. I mean, it was just illegal to look that good. Right now she wasn't wearing her usual attire. She was wearing what looked like gym shorts and t-shirts. Her hair was wrapped in a ponytail instead of her usual buns. As Naruto was staring at Tenten with a perverted grin on his face, a small trickle of blood could be seen coming out of his nose. So Naru-chan, like what you see, giggle, Tenten asked him, a sly smirk while striking a pose. She wore the tightest clothes she had in her wardrobe. Often people asked her why she hung out with a loser like Naruto. Well, it was a guarded secret that she really loved him ever since the day he saved her from a group of bullies. Flashback 6 years ago. Ha 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 ha, look at this stupid girl trying to play in our spot. Who the hell do you think you are? An older kid taunted her. Tenten was scared out of her wits. Her mother told her never to play in this area. But she wouldn't listen. Like always, she went into trouble headfirst. On top of that, she starts to defend this loser here with these weird red eyes. A second older kid starts shouting at her. Tenten had tears streaming down her face. She didn't want to show any weakness, but the girl next to her was already shaking from the taunts of the older kids. Tenten never liked bullies, and when she saw older boys pick on a defenseless girl, she couldn't help but let her sisterly senses kick in and defend the girl. She wasn't regretting the decision but the method in which she came to help the girl. So boss, what do you wanna do with this girl, huh? A smaller kid asked the leader of the gang. It's shame such a cute girl would be such a little bitch, but I guess we have to show her who's the boss, the boss said while cracking his knuckles and looking at Tenten with a sneer. Tenten didn't stop the tears flowing down her cheeks. She was so scared she prayed to the heavens that someone would save her. Oi, you bastards, what do you think you're doing, picking on a someone younger than you and girl as well? A blonde-haired blue-eyed kid shouted out. Tenten looked at her savior and couldn't help but blush as she thought that he was really cute. The boy had appeared out of nowhere and had cheesy grin on his face. Who the hell do you think you are, shrimp? I gonna kill you for that, the leader spoke while charging the boy. The other people in the gang ran at the boy as well, intent on showing him up. When they charged him, he had seemed to disappear out of nowhere. Tenten saw a yellow flash appear right before her eyes. It was like time slowed down and the boy looked back and gave her the biggest smile ever. Tenten's heart started to speed up as her hero said a few words that made her fall for him. Don't worry, you're safe now, I'll protect you, the blonde boy said to her. The bullies seemed to have noticed that the blonde kid was no longer there and turned around. They all saw the short blue-eyed kid charge them with blistering speed. He kneed the leader, who fell over and then elbowed him in the stomach. As he was on the ground, he spun on the ground with his legs in the air and knocked out the two other kid out. The blonde kid flipped up in the air while his leg kicked another kid in the air. As the mysterious hero landed near the girls, the remaining kids got up and ran while dragging their friends away. Wow, my training is really paying off, I am so strong, the blonde kid exclaimed while pumping his fist into the air. He turned around to face the two girls. Hey, you two, are you okay? They didn't hurt you, right? Tenten's savior asked with genuine concern. Tenten just shook her head to indicate that she was okay. Hey, can I get your name? Tenten asked with a tint of pink on her cheeks. I am Uzumaki Naruto, the future Hokage of this village, please too, Naruto started off saying but was cut off. There he is, big brother, that's the guy who punched me, the leader of the gang was back and with older guys. Naruto knew he wasn't any match for these guys and bolted off. As Tenten saw the boy run off, she couldn't help but smile and sigh to herself. Uzumaki Naruto, my hero. Flashback end. Tenten looked at her savior to see he was still the fun-loving kid who would protect anyone. Unfortunately, he never remembered that day, but that didn't stop her from admiring the boy. She loved teasing him because he would just sputter and say such cute things. Tenten sat down next to her hero and looked at him with a smile. Naruto felt Tenten's soft brown eyes look at him. He turned his head to see her look at him with sultry gaze. Naruto, being Naruto, of course couldn't help but blush. Why, you look really pretty, Tenten, Naruto sputtered out. Tenten, being a girl, of course, starting babbling about how she did her hair different and what shampoo she was using. Naruto, however, was not listening but gazing at her softly. They were both interrupted when Genma and Jiraiya appeared. Tenten, like Genma, didn't come from a shinobi family, so had to work by herself. She wanted to become a weapon specialist. It was her life dream as a shinobi to become something that not many shinobis are like and to grow up like Tsunade. When Jiraiya heard this, he thought it was rather interesting and that she might be useful in the future. The two senseis started them off on some individual training. According to Jiraiya and Genma, Tenten had some pretty strong legs and they were quite long. Her ability to do splits was quite amazing as well. It seemed she was quite flexible. Naruto put in an idea for her to learn taijutsu that uses leg forms a lot. Apparently he had a scroll with a very strong leg form. So the two senseis gave her some leg weights and some exercises to condition and strengthen her legs. Also, she would be trying to learn more jutsu with weapons involved and to try and use her weapons more often. Unfortunately, Genma had to go on a mission for the Hokage, which required his immediate attention. But because Jiraiya was here, he could oversee their training. Naruto started off by doing some summoning techniques by using his other chakra. A week had passed and the two genins were getting along quite nicely. Everyone could see the big difference that Tenten had made, she coming along quite nicely. Naruto summoned the boss toad by accident by the end of the week. Jiraiya was shocked that Naruto was able to grasp the technique so quickly. His ability to use the fox's chakra was amazing. Jiraiya, being the pervert he is, quickly went away saying he had research to do in some other village. It was funny when Naruto already told him that he could do summoning technique already. When Naruto told him he could summon the Monkey King Enma, Jiraiya seemed alright with it. Apparently there are two types of summons, one which the animal can turn into a weapon and are summoned through a weapon. The other is on of the boss toad size. That doesn't necessarily mean you can summon both types only until both summons are on good terms with one another and when both bosses recognize your strength. Both bosses put Naruto through a trial that Naruto never wanted to go through again. Luckily enough, they accepted Naruto. Who knew summons like to play truth or dare? Luckily, Genma had come back and now started to teach Naruto his own style of taijutsu, which was the pressure point fighting style. Tenten was learning some amazing ninjutsus from Genma, who showed her that she had an affinity to earth jutsus. Not just that, but Naruto taught her two of his techniques, one which was an original, the other a special kind of technique. Over the course of the month, Naruto and Tenten grew closer to each other. Naruto knew that he really liked Tenten but didn't know if she was just friendly or returned his feelings. Tenten, however, never stopped liking Naruto, and her feelings grew even more as she saw what a wonderful person he really was. Naruto hardly saw his teammates, as he was busy hanging out with Tenten. Naruto was currently looking up on his bedroom thinking about the whole month's events. Naruto didn't know what to do about his feelings with Tenten. He hadn't been this confused ever in his entire life and it scared him. When he thought back on his training, he knew that he shocked Ero Sennin with his ability to use the fox's chakra. When he first did the Raging Demon, he inadvertently tapped into the special power. He promised himself that he would cut down the use of the chakra and rely on his own power. With those thoughts, Naruto went to sleep, his thoughts clouded with uncertainty. Naruto looked up to see so many people in the stands. He felt like a bug compared when he looked up to see so many of them. To his side, the other combatants, both his comrades, were there as well and looked nervous as hell. It was probably the atmosphere. With so many people looking at you, of course you would a bit nervous. Naruto, however, knew that he had to show confidence as his match was the first one and he would give the crowd something to watch. Naruto noticed the coughing referee wasn't there anymore, there was just this guy with goggles. Everyone who was fighting went up to the stage. Naruto, however, felt something strange from that sand kid. He couldn't quite place it, but something about him made him feel uneasy and familiar, like he knew what he drew his power from. Naruto's comrades wished him good luck as he was about to fight against last year's Rookie of the Year. Naruto and Neji walked out into the middle of the arena ready to square off. Neji knew that Naruto's confidence could not be broken, however, he was still confused about the fate of this match. The power he demonstrated against the Cloud Shinobi in the preliminaries had him question his fate. In the end, Neji decided that fate wanted him to win and decided that Naruto couldn't possibly win ever since he had mastered another style of taijutsu that the main family didn't know about. Naruto, however, wasn't able to fix his staff and couldn't possibly use it, so he would have to use Enma from now on until he found a worthy staff. Right now he couldn't use it against Neji because of his style of fighting. Fate dictates that the outcome of the match is in my favor, you should just give up while you're, Neji pronounced arrogantly, while Naruto just stared at him with boredom. Naruto grew bored of his speech and did a number of hand seals and shouted out. Kaden. Karyu Enden, Fire Release. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. Neji, not expecting Naruto to be so forward, just barely escaped the fires by doing a back flip and landing against the stadium wall. When the fire cleared, Neji jumped down and smirked at Naruto. You think you? Neji started off but was cut off by Naruto, who made a seal with both his hands that looked like a cross. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Shadow Clone Jutsu. Around about 100 Narutos appeared out of nowhere and all circled Neji. The real Naruto was hiding somewhere in the group looking at how Neji fought. Even though Tenten gave him some tips on Hyuga fighting style, he had to find out how Neji fought and how he thought. Up in the stands, all the crowd were glued to the fight as Neji effortlessly destroyed each clone, and a certain bun-haired girl was torn between cheering Naruto and cheering Neji. Mai saw the girl's predicament but made no comment, as Naruto would be in the exact same situation between her and Tenten. The Chunin, however, were not interested in the demon brats fighting and thought he would lose badly. Two Junins were in stand watching the match with interest as they saw Naruto's power in the preliminaries. Genma, though, was confident as he watched the match from a distance, knowing what the outcome would be. Sakura and Ino were both watching the match with interest as they wanted their friend to win really badly. You think Naruto's going to win? I mean, I know he's strong, but does he stand a chance? A worried Sakura asked to Ino, who was glued to the match. I hope he does win. I mean, it would be really great if he shows up, the arrogant bastard, and what he did to Hinata was uncalled for. I mean, they are supposed to be cousins. If I was Hinata. Ino started ranting about the Hyuga prodigy, but Sakura tuned her out and turned her attention the match. Once all the shadow clones had been dealt with, Neji found himself in an empty area. He looked around to see where Naruto was until he felt two hands grab his legs from the ground. Neji then saw Naruto charging at him from the sky to punch. Of course, Neji smirked and quickly used his ultimate defense Kaden and spun Naruto out of control and away from him while destroying the clone underneath him. Naruto landed on his feet and smirked, as he already knew the Kaden's weakness. Unfortunately, Naruto couldn't penetrate it. Only his two moves, the Burning Knuckle and his new anti-Sharingan move, could probably penetrate it. Naruto decided to test out Neji's ultimate defense by using some of his other moves. Uzumaki Clan Ninjutsu. Chakra Wave. Naruto punched the ground to release a stream of chakra at tremendous speed. Neji, seeing that he couldn't dodge, prepared to use his Kaden. The wave seemed to be no match for the Hyuga-style defense, and Naruto's other two attacks were no match either. Naruto's wind slices were no match for Neji's Kaden and would have to go with his original plan. He looked up to the sky and saw the blazing sun and looked back at the ground. Neji saw Naruto dozing off, so decided to pay him back for cutting of his speech. Luckily, Naruto saw Neji coming at him and decided to put his plan in motion. Kirigakur no Jutsu, hiding mist technique. The whole battle area was enveloped in mist and the spectators couldn't see Neji or Naruto. All the Chunin and Junin were shocked to see that Naruto knew a hidden mist technique. Genma, though, was wondering what Naruto was up to. He looked up to the sky to see the blazing sun heat up the mist. Genma smirked and knew what Naruto was up to and couldn't wait for the outcome. Sweden. Daibikufu no Jutsu, water release, great waterfall technique. All the mist seemed to be drawn into a spot and then made into water and shoot out towards Neji. Neji luckily saw this and dodged it with ease as water engulfed the arena and landed on the ground. When the water cleared, the spectators were hanging on the edge of their seat to see Naruto and Neji squaring off and dodging each other's kunai. The examiners were impressed to see Naruto use such strategy to use water jutsu so creatively. It was hard for a shinobi to use water-type techniques without a water source. Only those who have a natural affinity could do it. Neji wasn't Rookie of the Year for nothing and sped off to Naruto with blistering speed. Naruto thought fast and released the chakra from his weights and managed to get away safely. Even thought they were both panting, Naruto got a burst of chakra from his weights, which helped him out greatly. But Naruto's first mistake was to let Neji start talking. Naruto, feeling sorry for him, let him blab on about destiny and how crappy his life was. The demon vessel, however, didn't realize that Neji was getting closer and closer until he said a few words that made Naruto berate himself. "You're in my range of divination." Neji spoke and charged Naruto, closing of 64 of his chakra points. Hake Rokujiyu Yansho, 8 trigrams 64 palms. Naruto slowly got up and berated himself for letting him get that close and started to back off and crawl back from Neji. Neji, though, smirked, thinking he had won the match, and started to spout his seal of hate, telling Naruto that he wouldn't know what it's like to have a seal you couldn't remove. Naruto, however, felt anger brimming. How dare that bastard say something like that? The spectators and shinobi looked at the match thinking it was over. Genma was still confused about how Naruto let Neji get so close to him. That was until he saw something that made him smirk. Tenten felt terrible with herself. She knew Naruto couldn't come back because he was a ninjutsu specialist. Hyuga Hiyashi, who was in the stands, was shocked beyond belief that Neji knew a main branch technique. Naruto got up and congratulated Neji for having such a great technique. "Great technique, Neji, I really commend you, but you know what your problem is? You don't look at the bigger picture," Naruto told him with a smirk. "What the hell are you talking about?" Neji asked with a sneer. "Don't you think it's a bit hot for puddle that size?" Naruto asked with a small size. Neji slowly looked down to his feet to see a big puddle. But it was too late for Neji to react as he saw a spiral flame fist coming right at him and uppercut him in the air. The result was that force of the uppercut and the flames made Neji useless, as he lied flat on the ground. Because Neji was unguarded, he felt the full force of the punch. Uzumaki Clan Taijutsu. Shinryuken, vertical dragon punch. The Naruto that appeared from the puddle was a shadow clone and puffed out as it landed near Naruto. Naruto walked up to Neji with his hands in his pocket. "I know what it's like to have a seal that can't be removed, but do you see me go around crying and spouting how I can't change anything about it? You're a good person, Neji. You can defy destiny if you have hope and willpower. With those words, the referee pronounced Naruto the victor of the match and everyone started cheering. The Hokage was looking at Naruto with a big smile. He was defiantly growing up to be a fine young man, and from the looks of it, he would take his position. Sandaime looked to his right to see the Kazekage enjoying the display that Uzumaki Naruto was showing. Hokage-sama, where did that boy learn that technique of his? Orochimaru asked in disguise. Well, Kazekage don't know. The boy Uzumaki Naruto created most of his techniques, and I must say he is a genius when it comes to original jutsus. I guess he has a knack for it, Hokage said with a big smile while waiting for the next match to start. Orochimaru was just thinking that this boy would be a great problem in the future, seeing as that he had an unwavering love for this village and its people. Orochimaru hoped he could try and make him switch sides and join him. So that whole mist water thing was just a cover for Naruto to hit and get past Neji's defense. He already tested it by going underground and grabbing his legs, one of the Chunin examiners said while complimenting him. He's defiantly not Genin level, that's for sure. He's defiantly Chunin level, another examiner said while looking down at Naruto. Yes, Naruto seemed to have impressed everyone. Mai and Tenten's match was up and Mai prompted to jump into the fighting area. While Tenten walked out to the arena hoping to catch Naruto on the way. She saw her hero walking up and he started smiling. Tenten saw him blush and heard him say good luck for her match. Naruto, thank you, and I like to give you a gift for winning that match, Tenten said while she quickly pecked Naruto's lips and quickly ran down to the arena. Naruto, who was just shocked at being kissed, just stood there with a dazed look. Mai and Tenten were both the strongest female genins in Konoha. Because no one knew Hanabi's strength, they didn't know how strong she really was. It seemed that both these girls had something to prove to one and another, to see who was the strongest. The referee announced the match and both shinobi locked in a battle of kenjutsu with both their swords flashing. Mai had opted for her twin swords while Tenten was fighting Masamune, a long katana almost twice the size of her. She didn't get the full size or it would have been too much. Mai found it unbelievable that someone was as good as her in kenjutsu, and so did Tenten. It could be seen that both of these girls were fearsome with the blades and cancelled each other out. Konoha Ryu Kenjutsu. Flashes of steel. Mai shouted out her attack while Tenten used her own Konoha technique style. Konoha Ryu Kenjutsu. Final flash. Both passed each other to find that they had cut each other in the leg. Mai knew she couldn't win with Kenjutsu alone, so she started to use Taijutsu, but unfortunately for her she found that Tenten was clearly more superior to her and started to use kicks at a blistering pace, and Mai found that she was being pummeled by her kicks. Hyakuretsu Kyaku, 100 straight kick. Naruto was watching from the stands and didn't know what to do, so he just stood there watching the match while shaking his fists. Mai quickly escaped her kicks and landed away softly. She looked at her opponent and smiled, knowing that she was in for the fight of her life. Tenten brought out one of her scrolls and she showed it to be one of her summoning weapon scrolls. Tobidogu projectile weapons. Tenten summoned a large amount of shuriken and kunai and threw them at Mai with incredible speed. Mai merely deflected them with ease with her twin katanas. As Tenten was thinking of what to do, the examiners and spectators were all glued to the match as they were with the previous match. Tenten didn't want to drag this out much longer, so brought out two scrolls and set them to her side ready to use them. Soshoryu, twin rising dragons. Mai saw her many weapons come at her at incredible speed, so she quickly jumped back to avoid the weapons hitting her. Tenten smiled as she fell into her trap and quickly re-threw her weapons back using the strings attached to them. Mai, who merely anticipated her doing this, used one of her favorite techniques. Tenten-san, I am going to show you that you're not the only one Naruto taught. Futon. Daitapa, wind release. Great breakthrough. Tenten's weapons, however, didn't stand a chance as the wind blew away the weapons as well as Tenten away. Tenten cursed herself for being so naive. She had shown that technique in the preliminaries. Naruto was just standing there gritting his teeth. He wanted to cheer on one of his friends, but he couldn't cheer both of them on. He just hoped they would be okay and gave it their all. Naruto knew the purpose of this exam and it wasn't to win, it was to show strength and tactical knowledge that all Chunin possess. Both female shinobi lay panting on the ground already exhausted from the fight. Tenten quickly ran at Mai with a 3-section staff and started to fight her twin blades. Everyone around the arena was amazed that both girls were able to fight with weapons so easily. They were really strong. Tenten lay panting away from Mai. She knew she had to end this quickly before Mai started to use genjutsu. Kurenai was starting to get worried. She thought for sure that Tenten wasn't a match for her little sister. Tenten prepared for her ultimate technique with the help of Naruto's technique. Mai watched as Tenten disappeared in a billow of leaves. Mai's eyes widened. That was one of Naruto's jutsus. Konoha Shunshin no Jutsu, tree leaf body flicker. Mai looked behind herself to see Tenten come out of nowhere. Huyokusen, Phoenix's fanning wings. Tenten proceeded to use a flurry of kicks, switching from one leg to another 3 times and smashed Mai away to the wall. Tenten started rubbing her legs as she felt that this technique did a number on her legs. She still needed to condition her legs more and get a bit of muscle on it, not in the freakish way either, the toned leg style. Tenten thought that would clinch the match in her favor but was mistaken when she might get up slowly, blood dripping from her mouth, and do a number of hand seals. Megan. Jigoku Koka no Jutsu, demonic illusion, descending hell technique. Tenten looked up to see a great ball of fire descending from the sky and about to hit her. She quickly shut her eyes and dispelled it by biting her lip. When Tenten opened her eyes, she saw one of her weapons pointing to her neck and a bruised Mai standing holding the weapon. Tenten wasn't dumb and knew that this was her limit, and she showed a great battle. I give up. Tenten spoke to the examiner while he proclaimed Mai the winner of the match. The whole crowd cheered as they saw one of the sickest fights ever. Kurenai, who was literally standing, fell down in her seat with a sigh. Naruto was torn between being happy and sad because both his friends put up a great fight in the end. Mai-san, that was a great battle. Thank you for not underestimating me and fighting to your fullest, so no hard feelings, Tenten asked while bringing a bruised and tired hand for a shake. Mai looked at her hand and smiled while shaking it, and they both started laughing as they were being carried off for medical attention. Sasuke had not arrived yet, so they pushed his match back to the last so Raiden would fight Hanabi. But for Hanabi, she was no match for Raiden as his superior strength and ninjutsu were too much for her to handle. At first she was faring well as all Raiden did was dodge, but she then found out why he wore that hakama. Raiden was a master at countering and throwing people. It was like he could pick up anyone and throw with ease. Hanabi got too close to him and was tossed around like a rag doll. Her final mistake was to try and cut off his chakra points. Hanabi didn't do her homework as the Kagura clan could push electricity through their chakra points, giving her the jolt of the century. Raiden finished her off with one of his original attacks that he had been developing to use against Naruto in fight. Kagura clan Haijutsu, Deadly Rave. Raiden basically finished her off with a combo that was inescapable. The next match was a strange one as the puppet guy forfeited. Naruto could tell that Shino was a little pissed off because his eye twitched. You could tell he really wanted to fight. Funnily, Naruto pushed Shikamaru to fight against Temari. He knew that the lazy git wouldn't move, so gave him a little motivation. It was weird in a sense that Shikamaru was able to come up with a strategy but forfeited. Naruto and Raiden noticed that Lee was in the spectator stands and went over to greet him with Shikamaru tagging along. Along the way they were greeted by the monstrous bloodlust of Gaara as he crushed 2 grass shinobi for getting in his way. When they reached the stands they saw a late Sasuke use Lee's taijutsu style. Naruto saw Lee squeezing his fist so tightly that his wounds opened up and started bleeding. Damn that bastard for stealing his style. Doesn't he know how long it took him to develop it, and you master it in a month, you in the neck Sasuke? Naruto saw Kakashi smiling and thought, what an ass. He missed his other student's match to just favor the emo cunt, but Sasuke used a technique that seemed to make Naruto a bit jealous of how he was able to use it. Naruto wouldn't let jealously take over him, no, that would make him just like that copying bastard. But Naruto would have the last laugh, as his jutsu was completely anti-Sharingan. But when Naruto saw that strange hand come out of Gaara, he knew something was wrong. His chakra felt demonic. Oh shit, he couldn't be. That's impossible, Naruto thought to himself. Genma-sensei, that guy Gaara isn't normal, he gives me the living creeps, Naruto said to Genma, who nodded in agreement. Even Kakashi agreed something was off with the mascara kid. Naruto looked to his side to see Raiden telling Shikamaru a joke he didn't want to hear. Okay, here it goes. Sandaime Hokage was sitting in his office working on some reports when he sees a bright light in front of himself. What the hell was that? Sandaime spoke. Yondaime Hokage walks in and says to him, "What's wrong, old man? You see your life flash before your eyes." Raiden was howling with laughter at his lame joke while giggling and saying about flashes. Naruto, however, grew serious and looked around. Something wasn't right. The air was thick and something felt out of place. He then felt a feather touch his face and instantly knew it was a genjutsu and cursed himself for not learning any ways to counter high-level genjutsus. Naruto, however, didn't miss the loud explosion from Sandaime's seat and couldn't help but feel scared for the man he grew to know as a grandfather. All the Konoha Junins that were in the stadium looked around to see an influx of sound and sand shinobi arrive in the stadium. Sakura looked around, already being able to deflect the genjutsu to see Konoha shinobi fight the sound and sand shinobi. Genma jumped down to take on the sand shinobi that was the Junin sensei of the sand trio. Aoba quickly jumped off the arena and started to help the other Junin fight the sound shinobi. Genma looked at a bleeding Sasuke to tell him to go after Gaara, as he was a shinobi of the leaf. Kakashi saw Sasuke chasing after Gaara and knew that he wouldn't be able to take on the sand demon alone. Sakura, I want you to release the genjutsu from Naruto, Raiden and Shikamaru. I am giving you AA rank mission, Kakashi said while doing his summoning technique to bring forth the dog named Pakun. Naruto woke up in a daze to see fighting all around him. Naruto looked at Sakura, Raiden and Shikamaru, to them looking back at him with a grim expression. Before he could even ask anything, they pulled him through a hole through the stadium that Guy had created. Naruto was running quite fast and trying to keep up with the events that had just happened. Right now Sakura, him and the little dog were running towards the area where Sasuke and Gaara were fighting. Raiden and Shikamaru stopped off to stop the oncoming sound shinobi following them. Naruto was gritting his teeth. He knew that Gaara was really strong and Sasuke couldn't possibly beat him. Naruto then saw the fight between the two shinobi and quickly pushed chakra into his feet to kick of Gaara before he could do anything to Sasuke. Sasuke saw Uzumaki Naruto come out of nowhere and help him kick of Gaara. Sakura appeared before Sasuke to see if she was alright, only to see the cursed seal over his body. Naruto noticed that Sasuke had the same strange markings as he had in the Forest of Death. Naruto quickly turned his attention Gaara. He saw Gaara was in some sort of demon form, and his body was covered in sand. Naruto started to sweat, sensing the monstrous power that was Gaara. Naruto started to doubt that he could actually stop this guy. Naruto, however, was careless as Gaara quickly pushed him off and used his sand to trap Sakura against a tree. Naruto didn't know why Gaara trapped her against the sand, but he started to get more worried. Naruto looked at the eyes of the boy and saw the same eyes he used to have. Loneliness was written all over his eyes and his body screamed hate. Sasuke looked to his side and tried to get up, but the pain that afflicted him from the cursed seal made him collapse. Naruto cursed himself for being so weak and quickly ran after the demon of sand. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto shouted out loud and charged him with an army of clones to be blown away by Gaara's massive right hand. The real Naruto was pushed right up against a tree and coughed up some blood. He looked back up with blood trailing his mouth and wiped it off his hand. Naruto quickly did a flurry of hand seals and spoke. Kaden. Karyu Enden, Fire Release. Fire Dragon Flame Bullet. Naruto breathed out a huge stream of flame from his mouth and increased the heat by putting more chakra into the attack. When the flames cleared, he saw a sheet of glass in front of him and saw Gaara behind and smirk. Oh shit. Naruto cursed himself to see Gaara use his other wind attack against him, which broke the glass that was in front of Gaara and directly go after him. Doden. Doryuheiki Earth Release. Earth-style wall. Naruto on instinct called forth the wall of earth, which saved him from the glass shards that would have surely killed him. Naruto looked behind himself to see Gaara behind him smirking. Naruto couldn't defend himself when Gaara punched him straight through his earth wall and to make him land against a tree. What are you doing, Uzumaki Naruto? Your pink-haired friend won't survive much longer. My sand will crush her if you don't stop me. Why don't you show me that power you used against the Cloud Nin? Gaara shouted at Naruto, who was aching all over from the beating that Gaara was giving him. In his entire life, Naruto had never fought a person who this strong. Naruto started doubt that he could make it out alive with this monstrous power against him. It was then Naruto looked at Sakura's lifeless body being slowly crushed by Gaara's sand. He had to save her no matter what. He couldn't let his friend die. Damn you! Naruto shouted and blindly attacked Gaara to only be hit back with his sand shurikens. But before Naruto could hit a tree again, Sasuke used his body to shield his body against the impact. Naruto looked back to see Sasuke struggling to stand up. Naruto, we may not like each other, but we don't want to see Sakura get hurt, Sasuke said while standing up. He didn't even look back at Naruto but said something. I'll distract Gaara and you go save Sakura and get out of here. I don't want to see another important person die. Naruto, make sure she is safe, Sasuke finished saying, and Naruto finally understood where people got their strength from. Up until now, Naruto was fighting for himself and only to prove his strength. Naruto stood up slowly and said, "Thanks Sasuke, you finally made me realize why I was so weak against this guy. You go rest, you have done enough, let me handle the rest," Naruto said while forming a seal that looked like a cross. "I will protect Sakura with my life," Naruto shouted out and spoke his jutsu. Taju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, multiple shadow clone technique. About 100 Narutos appear in the forest and look smugly at the Sand Nin. All of the Naruto proceed to pummel the shit out Gaara, punching him and using various jutsus. Gaara is looking at Naruto with anger at how he is able to muster this kind of strength and finally goes overboard and releases his final form. Naruto couldn't believe how powerful Gaara was. Even after his non-stop training, it seemed like his power was only a fraction of Gaara's. Naruto looked around to see sand forming around his body and knew this would be the end. However, hearing Sakura's cry for help, Naruto couldn't let her down, not yet, not now. Kuchio's no Jutsu, summoning technique. Naruto poured all his remaining chakra into the technique to summon the toad boss, and it worked. With Naruto breathing heavily upon a huge toad, Naruto saw the huge sand form of Gaara. Gamabunta had told Naruto all about which demon and what condition Gaara was in. That was until Gaara used his force sleep technique to bring out the demon. The battle that ensued was one Naruto wouldn't forget in a very long time. It seemed the boss toad was pulling out all the stops to try and take out the sand raccoon. But the power of the demon overcame the toad boss, and they both knew they had to wake up Gaara by themselves. Both Naruto and Gamabunta used a combination henge to try and grab onto the raccoon. Naruto knew that this was his only chance to stop the demon. With little chakra he had left, Naruto charged his fist and made a straight dash at Gaara that couldn't be stopped even by the demon himself. Naruto had developed this jutsu that the user gathers a vast amount of chakra in his hand, which becomes so much that it starts to burn the user's hand. But before the user's hands gets blown up to shreds, they push off with a small amount of chakra with their feet. The advantage of this attack was that the user would move at an inhuman speed. But the disadvantage was that the user could only move forward and the person had to stay in the same spot. Luckily for Naruto, Gaara was a sitting duck for him and literally knocked some sense into him. Uzumaki clan taijutsu, burning knuckle. With the force of the punch, the stupid raccoon was put back in Gaara's and forcibly waked the Jinchuriki. Naruto was heaving and sighing. He could tell that he was at his limit, but he needed to deliver the final blow to end this fight. He could hear the boss toad telling him good luck as he puffed back to wherever he came from. Naruto need chakra and knew one way to get it. Damn stupid fox, I hate borrowing your power, but if you don't give me your chakra we're both dead. So give me some rent, you damn lecher. Naruto roared in his head, and all he got was a deep and evil laugh as red chakra surrounded his body and blew off his headband. Damn you Uzumaki, Naruto, just die. Gaara shouted back at Naruto in anger, making all the sand around him attack Naruto. Naruto looked up and smiled. This was a perfect time to use his latest kinjutsu. Gaara looked around to see Naruto disappear. Uzumaki clan kinjutsu, Masogi. Naruto shouted out his technique as he appears from the sky with blinding light that hits Gaara straight in the chest, taking him out of the match. Naruto, however, didn't realize that being so high up in the air and the force of the blow would cause him so much harm. Naruto landed on the ground with his left hand bleeding and stinging with pain. But the fight was won, and Naruto gave Gaara some advice and a fact why he was so strong. At Naruto's final words, he saw Sasuke and he told him Sakura was fine. Naruto's contented smile was the only thing you could see as he drifted into unconsciousness. Naruto was looking at a picture of him and the old Hokage. This picture was taken when he first developed the Raging Storm and he was bedridden for a week. Using his right hand to hold the picture as his left one was in a cast and in a sling. Naruto looked at the happy face of the old man. Naruto willed himself not to cry but couldn't help the tears roll down his cheeks and hit his precious memory. The old man was the first person to ever recognize his strength, and now he was dead. He couldn't believe the strongest shinobi of the leaf was dead. Sarutobi Hokage was the person who made Naruto who he was. With that little help he was able to start his shinobi training. His gold card was the key, the locked gate that gave him so many opportunities. He had told himself that he would pay back the old man and make him retire so he could live out his golden years properly like he deserved. Now he wouldn't be able to see the kind smile or great tip that would make Naruto's day. Naruto looked down and put the picture away, his headband currently hanging from his neck as he wore an all-black outfit for the funeral of people who gave their lives for the battle. Naruto stood up and left his apartment and slowly walked down the streets. His two teammates who had made it out safely but had bruises from their fights quickly joined him. Naruto and Ko arrived at the memorial service to see a crowd of shinobi gather around to mourn for their leader. The greatest leader this village had ever seen. He had been with the village as Hokage for a very long time and was considered the best leader this village had ever produced. Naruto sighed from his position and looked up to the mountain to see a crack on the face of the third. Naruto looked to his right to see a crying Konohamaru weeping for his grandfather. Under all that thought, exterior and verbal abuse of the third, he could tell that Konohamaru loved his grandfather a lot and would greatly miss like everyone else. The service had started and shinobis had started to give a white flower to the memorial of Sarutobi Hokage. Naruto thought back to all his happy memories and smiled at himself. As the rain cleared and the people went back home, Naruto told himself not to beat himself up with the death of the old man. Sandaime would have wanted him to be happy that he protected the village and he was shaping up to be a great man. Naruto ran up to his teammates and started to chat with them about anything in general. Team 6 had arrived at a restaurant that was open to everyone, but usually shinobis ate here. The restaurant owner Maki Haim came up to Team 6 and asked their orders. "So guys, what will it be, or are you guys not hungry?" Maki asked to her favorite team. Well, eat the usual, Maki, but get Naruto something he can eat with one hand," Genma said while taking his Senbon needle out and placing it on the table. With that, Maki went over to go and cook some of her specialty dishes. "So Naruto, any word on how to fix your left arm?" Mai said while drinking some water. Naruto's hand was completely broken and the muscles were burned out. This time it was the fox's chakra that made it worse. Because his attack uses concentrated amounts of chakra, it corroded his arm, leaving it completely useless. "Yeah, they said they could fix it, but I would have to go into surgery and they could botch the surgery, making my arm even worse than it is now," Naruto said, sighing to himself. Usually the fox would have healed it, but for some reason he wasn't healing it, maybe because his chakra still lingers there. Don't worry Naruto, I am pretty sure that your arm will be good as new, Raiden replied back with an enthusiastic grin. Naruto however noticed that Raiden and Mai wouldn't look at each other and that something must have happened between them. Naruto looked at Mai who was looking at her watch and she screamed out loud in terror. Oh, I am sorry guys, you will have to have my food, I completely forgot I have a date with Kiba-kun in like 2 hours and I need to get dressed, sorry and bye. Naruto was shocked at Mai's declaration of her having a date. Naruto then looked at Raiden who had a look of pure hurt. Genma and Naruto looked at each other and knew that Raiden was hurting really badly. Hey Raiden buddy, I am really sorry man, Naruto started to say but was cut off by Raiden's ridiculous fake laughter. What are you talking about? I'm fine, besides our food is here, let's dig in, Raiden said while changing the conversation. Naruto and Genma sighed at Raiden's hard act. Naruto just wished that they didn't destroy each other's friendship because of their complicated love life. It had been 3 weeks since the Sound and Sand invasion and Konoha had just received word that Sand had surrendered because they were double-crossed by Orochimaru. Naruto detested that name, he wanted him to pay for what he did to Konoha, his home. Yo kid, it's true, all you eat is ramen, a voice said while popping in to grate him. Naruto looked shocked that the perverted hermit was here and with him was Tenten-chan, what are you doing with that lecherous pervert? Naruto asked while finishing his ramen. Well Naruto-kun, you see Jiraiya-sama has told me that me and you are going on a very high-class mission to retrieve Tsunade-sama so she can heal Lee and you, Tenten said before Jiraiya could respond to Naruto's obvious disrespect. Naruto knew who Tsunade was because it was in one of his books. Oh, even though you're ungrateful brat, I am going to teach you a really great jutsu so pack, Jiraiya started to say but didn't finish because as soon as he said that he would be teaching Naruto a jutsu, all that could be seen is a Naruto-shaped dust cloud. I swear that boy loves jutsu more than anything else, Jiraiya sighed out loud while walking to the gate. 30 minutes later Naruto, Tenten and Jiraiya were at the village gates ready to leave. Not known to either of the two genins, one of the real reasons is for leaving was that Tsunade would become the new Hokage. Jiraiya however didn't know of the battle that was going on between Konoha Junins and two missing nins. You don't know the real reason of why we are here and who we are, Itachi said with a smirk while looking at 4 Konoha Junins, which consisted of Guy, Asuma, Kurenai and beaten Kakashi after experiencing Tsukuyomi. They might not know what you're after but I do, Akatsuki scum, Genma said appearing behind Itachi and Kisame. Itachi and Kisame looked behind themselves to see a Senbon needle shinobi with a lazy smile. I know your true purpose, which is the Kyuubi inside Naruto, isn't it? Genma asked them. Kisame was ready to kill this annoying leaf shinobi before he could say any more but was cut off by Itachi. Kisame, we should leave, we don't want to draw any attention to ourselves, we have already created a ruckus, besides Naruto-kun isn't here, Itachi told Kisame, who only nodded with annoyance, and they both took off. All the Junins looked at Kakashi, who started to sink in the water. Guy said they should all go over to Kakashi's apartment so that Genma could explain how he knew what they were after. Genma agreed to tell what he knew because it was Jiraiya-sama who told him what Akatsuki were during Naruto's training. Naruto was walking with Jiraiya and Tenten looking quite down. Only moments ago 2 weird guys show up saying that they were going to take him away so that they could take away Kyuubi for their own evil purposes. However, Sasuke, who came seeking revenge for his family by killing his brother, interrupted them. Naruto knew of Uchiha massacre but never knew that Sasuke wanted revenge so badly. It made him feel sorry for the guy. It's because of Itachi that Sasuke has such messed up life. He now knew why it was such a hard, but that still didn't stop him from still hating him for stealing other people's hard-earned work. Luckily Jiraiya had saved them from certain peril by using one of his toad jutsus. Naruto couldn't help but wonder why Jiraiya hadn't told him earlier. But now it was more the reason to get his arm healed as quickly as possible. So Ero Sennin, what jutsu you going to teach me? Is it some really super cool ninja ass kicking technique? Naruto said with vigor while jumping up and down. Tenten giggled at Naruto's behavior. Well, here we are the town. I need to gather information about the whereabouts of Tsunade. Oh sorry Naruto, anyways I need to gather the necessary equipment for the jutsu, so why don't you and Tenten hang out for the day? Bye bye. With that, Jiraiya had left both genins alone to do whatever they wanted. Naruto however felt really awkward ever since the kiss he had received from Tenten during his victory against Neji. Tenten smiled that Jiraiya gave her enough alone time for her and Naruto to bond. She really wanted to hang out with Naruto like back in the academy when she used to tease him. Tenten grabbed Naruto's butt and whispered. Well Naru-kun, why don't we go have some fun? Tenten tore off, dragging Naruto with her. Naruto couldn't remember a time when he had so much fun, but with Tenten it seemed like they enjoyed everything with each other. Even though she wouldn't stop teasing the poor boy, Naruto felt very happy. They had so much fun playing the games, having food, and just enjoying each other's company. Tenten was currently snuggling a huge teddy bear that Naruto won for her in the bullseye competition. Naruto looked at the brown-haired minx and smiled at her contented face. She looks really happy, and Naruto just found it nice and weird. Tenten-chan, I don't want to be rude, but why do you hang out with me? I mean, back in the academy everyone hated me and I remember people telling you not to hang out with me. So why did you still hang out with me? Naruto asked with genuine curiosity. Tenten was startled at the question and was thankful that the bear covered her face. Well Naruto-kun, you're really a great guy, and back in the academy all guys thought that girls were weird and the girls all did the same thing, which was chase Neji. Tenten started to say. But you were not like the others and you never looked at me or held anything back, and for that Naruto-kun you are one of my precious people. Tenten finished with a full-blown blush and started run ahead. Naruto looked back at Tenten's retreating back and couldn't stop the blush spreading from his neck to his face. Naruto was walking along a path with his left hand still in the sling. It was really strange that his arm was still fractured. There was no way his arm should be this bad even if the drop was that long. The stupid fox wasn't even answering back, which made him even angrier. In Naruto's right hand he was trying to pop the water balloon, but to no avail. Naruto was getting very worried now. When he started training he completely forgot that all his jutsu needed both hands, either to help him do the jutsu or to perform a hand seals. So right now Naruto really needed that woman's help. But he didn't know much about her other than the fact she was the first's granddaughter and she was on the pervert's team. So when he asked both Ero Sennin and Tenten, they both looked shocked that a person like me wouldn't know who she was. But Jiraiya didn't get to explain who she was because Tenten dove into an explanation about her heroine, the great Tsunade. Naruto smiled when Tenten's eyes lit up when she explained who the great Tsunade was. Naruto and Ko kept looking for the elusive Sannin, and Naruto progressed far with the water ball exercise by already popping it in his right hand. But it had taken him 2 weeks to actually do it, and whenever he did it, it became quite a strain on him. Naruto and Ko had been searching for the elusive Sannin for 3 weeks and with no sign of her at all, but when Jiraiya said they would eat at a place for dinner they got the shock of their lives. Jiraiya! Tsunade shouted out from her seat looking at the perverted Sennin. Jiraiya thanked God he found her because he was getting pretty tired of finding her. So the 5 shinobi sat down and something to eat or drink. Naruto was finding it pretty hard to eat with one hand again, and Tenten volunteered to be his other hand and she was spoon-feeding him like a little baby. Shizune was looking at the both of them and started to laugh at Naruto's obvious embarrassment. After they had their meal, Jiraiya told them about the situation and what Orochimaru did and offered her the position as the next Hokage. Naruto was obviously shocked at what had transpired here. He didn't know that Jiraiya's real intention was to actually bring her back to make her the Hokage. Humph. Hokage Only a fool would be the Hokage, Tsunade said while she berated the position of the Hokage. Naruto though felt anger course his body as she started to verbally abuse the Hokages. But her next words made Naruto snap. Humph, the old man had it coming to him anyways. Tsunade said with no emotion whatsoever. Naruto snapped the glass in his hand and leapt on the table, his face so close to Tsunade's that their noses were almost touching. How dare you say that about the Hokage? Who gave you the right to say something like that? I beat you to bloody pulp even if you're a woman, Naruto whispered to her in pure malice. Tsunade, however, being such an experienced shinobi, merely shrugged off Naruto's action and told him to prove it by backing up his words. Naruto was at a handicap for having only one arm, but also her being a Hokage-level shinobi. Naruto knew he never stood a chance, but he had to show her what a Konoha shinobi is supposed to do. Tenten, however, was shocked that a person such as Tsunade would stoop so low to insult her former teacher and to pick a fight with a handicapped boy. Naruto and Tsunade faced off. She said she could beat him with only one finger. Naruto, however, felt angered that she would insult him by saying how weak he was, that she only needed one finger. Before I flick your pathetic little head, tell me, why do you get so worked up when someone mentions the Hokage? Tsunade asked with curiosity towards the Kyuubi vessel. Naruto smirked, however, when she asked this. Because becoming Hokage is my dream, Naruto said with fierce determination. But when he saw Tsunade's reaction, he had a chance and charged his level Rasengan. Jiraiya smiled at Naruto's words and knew he was the kid who could bring back to Konoha. Tsunade saw Naruto approaching her at the last second and kicked the ground and made Naruto quickly jump back, dispelling the Rasengan. Jiraiya, why did you teach such a pathetic shinobi a great move like that? He doesn't deserve it, he hasn't even mastered it. Tsunade finished with a grin while looking at the seething shinobi. Don't worry, I will master this move in a week's time, Naruto replied back with a wry grin. Tsunade laughed at Naruto and bet him that he wouldn't be able to master it at all in a week, but if he loses he would have to give his money in Gama-chan to Tsunade. If he wins he would get her necklace. Of course there's no way a shinobi like you can win, I mean you practically useless with your arm, Tsunade said with a sneer, but for Naruto that was the final straw and he ran at her with rage. Unfortunately for Naruto, Tsunade flicked him with her finger and he went flying back, landing on his injured arm. Tenten saw Naruto being flung back and quickly and ran after him to make sure he was alright. Tsunade didn't even look back and started to walk away. How could you do that to someone has a broken arm? I came on this mission help fix Naruto-kun's arm and meet my heroine, Tenten said with angry tears coming out of her eyes. But now I see who you really are, Tsunade. You disgust me. Tenten finished with malice as she picked up Naruto and dragged him to the inn, Shizune following him. Tsunade was stopped standing there, her eyes wide by the genin's statement. She couldn't help but feel like a real bitch for killing someone's image of her. Naruto woke up to see it was still dark and that he was alone in his room until he heard someone crying. Naruto slowly got up to see Tenten was crying against the balcony, her arms wrapped around herself. Tenten-chan, what's wrong? Naruto asked with concern laced in his voice. Tenten looked back at Naruto with sad face and looked down at her feet. I thought coming here would make my dreams come true to see the legendary Tsunade, but I realized that she was nothing but a phony and I wanted to grow up like her to become a. Tenten couldn't hold it in anymore and collapsed against Naruto, crying her heart out for her heroine breaking her will and her dream completely. Naruto couldn't help but feel anger when he saw Tenten cry, and it was because of that damn woman as well. Unknown to both of them, Tsunade was listening to Tenten's confession outside the door. When Tenten calmed down, Naruto noticed that she was fast asleep. Naruto laid a sleeping Tenten on his bed to hear Tsunade's apprentice come in and tell why Tsunade did what she did. I don't care why she did it, but she made Tenten-chan cry, and in my book that's unforgivable, Naruto said and started to walk out but stopped himself and looked back at Shizune. Shizune-san, could you please look at my left arm? Naruto asked Shizune, who looked a bit shocked but smiled and started to look at Naruto's arm. For a whole week Naruto trained non-stop trying to perfect the Rasengan. But to no avail, he only just properly got level 2 right and his arm would ache from the intense surge of chakra. Naruto was lucky he could do it so quickly because of being able to manipulate wind chakra so easily and knowing quite a lot of wind-based jutsus. But he couldn't even form the Rasengan properly. It took the fourth 3 years to make the jutsu, but he never asked Jiraiya how long it took him to learn the technique. Naruto, however, wasn't thinking of this but trying to keep up with Jiraiya as they tore after Tsunade's path of destruction. From the looks of it, Tsunade had rejected that bastard's offer, which made Tenten smile knowing that Tsunade wasn't all that bad. When they arrived, they could see Tsunade trying to stop her, shaking from looking at a guy with glasses, blood pour from his hand. Naruto couldn't quite help but think where he saw this freak before. But Naruto couldn't dwindle on little thoughts like this as he was trying to avoid the huge snake that was attacking him. Naruto looked back to see Tenten trying to snap Tsunade from whatever trance she in. It was then he saw the glasses freak run after Tsunade. Naruto quickly leapt down and kicked the weirdo away. Naruto started to huff and poof from trying to avoid the idiot with the glasses. Naruto knew he had to reveal his trump card and threw off his sling and used his left hand to make a single shadow clone. Kabuto just smirked and charged the Kyuubi vessel. Tsunade was watching Naruto win a losing battle and she screamed for Naruto to run away. Run away? No way, I am going to prove to you I'm not a worthless shinobi and that a Hokage never runs away from protecting their precious people, Naruto said with a confident smirk and caught Kabuto's hand with his left. Naruto felt blinding pain shoot through his left hand. Even though Shizune had healed it, she wasn't as great as Tsunade. Naruto knew he must have broken it again, but he needed to hold the pain. Naruto's clone started to charge the Rasengan in his right hand and then plunged it right into Kabuto's stomach, sending him flying away. Naruto wanted to jump for joy for being able to do the jutsu with such ease. But his body spoke otherwise as he felt a blinding pain shoot through his arm and cough up a large amount of blood. Tsunade quickly rushed forward and started to heal the demon vessel, and when all hope was lost, Naruto brought his hand up to her necklace and took it, smiling, saying that he had won. Naruto wasn't able to stay awake as he drifted off into darkness. Tsunade started to cry as she placed her necklace on Naruto's neck. It meant that a new Hokage was already in the making. "Aw man, it feels like I was hit by Raiden's punches and then told me one of his lame jokes," Naruto said out loud as he brought his left hand to rub his eyes but then realized. "So you're awake, I see your hand is completely healed, you can thank me of course, because there isn't anything I can't heal," Tsunade said with a grin that made Naruto smile. Apparently the demonic chakra in Naruto got stuck in his arm when he used Misogi and it couldn't heal properly because the vast amount that was stuck in. So all she did was remove it bit by bit with a special technique she developed. Shizune tried to heal it, but she only healed the bone and not the muscle properly. She also didn't know of the demonic chakra that was stuck in the arm. Naruto finally understood that too much of the fox's chakra was not good for him. Of course you can't use it as effectively straight away, you will have to build up the muscle like it was before, Tsunade finished saying while going down the restaurant to have breakfast. "Naruto, don't worry, I have already apologized for my behavior to Tenten. It was wrong of me to almost break her dream," Tsunade finished saying on the stairs. Naruto smiled knowing that Tenten would be really happy that her heroine was back. Naruto quickly packed his bags and had a quick shower while brushing his teeth. Naruto rushed downstairs to meet the beaming face of Tenten, who hugged Naruto with everything she had. The adults all had smiles on their faces and thought the same thing. Young love. As they were having breakfast, Tenten kept going on about how great Tsunade was against Orochimaru and how powerful she was. It was during the talking that Naruto found out that Tsunade had taken the position of Godime Hokage. "What, that old hag is Hokage?" Naruto shouted out while earning a glare from Tsunade and Tenten. "What brat, you want to take this outside?" Tsunade shouted back at Naruto, who was also glaring. Like a week ago, both blondes were facing off ready to fight, but Naruto didn't even get a chance to get in a stance. Tsunade had flicked his headband off and sent him tumbling back. Because his arm was completely healed, his balance was back. Naruto though shut his eyes waiting for the chakra-enhanced finger to send him to his doom. But Naruto didn't feel pain. He felt a pair of lips kiss his forehead and looked up to see Tsunade with a big grin on her face. Naruto's face also split into a huge grin. Naruto and Ko, now packed, were ready to go to Konoha with Naruto and Tenten in the front, both of them happily chatting away. Tsunade smiled. She now had two new precious people and one person to carry Naki and Dan's dream. Naruto held the precious necklace and smiled. Yes, Naruto thought life was really starting to become great. Tenten looked back to see her heroine was back and her image of her wasn't false. She was just going through a rough time like all people go through, and Naruto was able to bring her back. Tenten looked at her other hero and smiled at the blonde's actions. She wished she could just muster the courage to tell him how much she loved him. But for now everything was all right for Naruto and company. Well, this certainly is a big surprise. I didn't think you three would pass at the same time, Genma told his three students who wearing Chunin flak jackets. It seemed that the entire Team 6 had passed the Chunin exam on account of their performance against their opponents. Naruto though couldn't help but hold his excitement. Only 4 Genins passed and the whole team seemed to graduate. Naruto's hard work had paid off and he couldn't be happier. Good news as well. It seems our resident, Raging Storm, brought back the legendary Tsunade to become our new Hokage, Genma finished saying while patting Naruto's head. Naruto was blushing from all the attention. He seemed to have made the THS shinobi populace very happy with Tsunade's return. So Genma-sensei, what are we going to do then? Because we became Chunin, I think this village might give us a mission, a high-class mission possibly, Raiden asked with a hopeful smile, hoping that they were going to do an exciting mission. Well, since you asked, yesterday I went to Hokage-sama after your promotion and she has a mission lined up for you with another shinobi as team leader, Genma told his team, who looked excited that they were going to receive a mission. I don't know the details, but the mission is tomorrow and you should get the heads up on the way. It's a B rank mission, so do be careful, and your meeting place is 11 a.m. sharp, so don't be late. Also good luck. You guys are a very good team and you will only get stronger. Naruto was on the edge of his seat. He couldn't wait till he was doing the mission. Now that he was fully fit, he could fight at full strength and try to master the Rasengan in one hand. Naruto and his team headed off in different directions. Even though it was the morning, Naruto knew he had to pack, but he could do it once he got home. Training now would only make him tired in the morning, and ever since he came back he was doing a lot of intense training. He had to get the muscle in his left arm much stronger. He also upped the amount of chakra in his weights, which were now 30, that greatly increased his strength and speed. Naruto though hadn't talked to Tenten ever since he came back. He assumed that she must have been busy training or doing team missions. Naruto was however still confused with his feelings. He knew that they couldn't be resolved in a matter of days and it would take a long time to come to terms with it.